Welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled Adabas October 2017 Release. Today's program will be presented by Wolfgang Weiss, Senior Director of Product Management at Software AG. Before I turn today's presentation over to Wolfgang, I would like to briefly introduce you to Software AG. Software AG helps companies with their digital transformation. With Software AG's digital business platform, companies can better interact with their customers and bring them on new digital journeys, promote unique value propositions, and create new business opportunities. In the Internet of Things market, Software AG enables enterprises to integrate, connect, and manage IoT components, as well as analyze data and predict future events based on artificial intelligence. The digital business platform is built on decades of uncompromising software development, IT experience, and technological leadership. Software AG has more than 4,500 employees, is active in 70 countries, and had revenues of €872 million in 2016. It is now my pleasure to welcome Wolfgang Weiss.
Okay, thank you. Well, so today's session is, as was at Adabas October 2017 release, and we call it Delta Training because I want to talk to you about new functionality, new features we implemented based on your requirement or on the needs of the market. So let's start. I separated the presentation in a way that I start with mainframe and then go over to the what we call LUW, the Linux, Unix, and Windows-based products. Let me start on the mainframe. On Adabas 8.4.2, actually a service pack that in order to be faster in delivering new functionality, we introduce new functionality. The first major one actually is what's required by legal, that all activities against the database through Adabas utilities or Adabas online services, so that means the GUI part need to be recorded, tracked, in order to find out what happened, and if something happened which is not correct, that you can find out who did what when. So we introduced a new ADA run parameter, audit log equal console today. So that means we have the requirement that you actually want us to send the data in a structured way to the console because you have software there where you can grab it and process it then. So when you do this, then you enable logging. And what happens is, as you can see more on the right side, we bring out information in a structured way. So you have the time, you have the job name, so the time, the user ID, the originator, you have the database ID, in this case 00199, the user, USA XXX, and you get an information who actually did it. So today you see ADA UTI, so that means it was an Adabas utility, and you get the function that has been executed and the file number if it's related to a file, or as you can see, if you have no file, then it's against the database itself. Another point here is what you can see, sometimes you get more than one line on the console because we do internally a few actions and that gets reported. So we write, for example, a checkpoint, we finish the offline save, and we write another checkpoint, things like that. That's what you will get. And of course, the DPAM parameter of Adabas shows now the new audit log parameter. Another new functionality you get is actually a replacement to streamline the execution of Adabas. When you have universal encoding on, then you know that you need the universal encoding systems, what we call entire conversion services, ECS, With the version 8.4.2, you have the option to use a different way of code page translation. We call it CICS. And maybe a benefit for you is because you have less software on it, you don't need smarts anymore. CICS is based on the international component for Unicode. That's an open source project driven by IBM, and you see the link, you can go there. The ICU, what we call ICS, because we do some modifications to it with go back actually, and we already use this in natural on mainframe, and we use this on Adabas on LUW, the Linux, Unix, Windows one. So that means we go in a direction that we use for the same functionality, for the same purpose, the same software, which makes life easier. So the entire conversion services is still default in this release, and therefore on the right side you see how you can enable Adabas ICS. So it's delivered in a load library, and you know that L001 together with a code page module in the library ICS 221. Both of the libraries needs to be concatenated in your steplib for the utilities and the nucleus, and you get a set, the number you see, to switch CICS on. SEP is available in S001. The intention behind is that you can continue as you're used to work, and you can then switch to the new system, can try it out. In our tests, we didn't find any differences between the ECS and the CICS. So, but anyway, I guess you would test it and then you can use it. In one of the next, probably the next minor version, we change the behavior, so the ICU or CICS will become the default encoding system. Now let's go to the Adabas review, and I need to say on mainframe because we also have an Adabas review on LUW now. So on the mainframe, we did mainly change enhancements, requests coming from you. And when you see this here, regen, recat check, you may think that's not what I requested. No, but you requested that the upgrade from one version to another one should be much easier and less cumbersome. And that's what we did. So the regen is the regenerate of display programs, and there we have an enhanced option all, which generates and saves display program, and it provides an error list in a file of all the errors this function detected. Behind the scenes, the natural cat all is used, and this happens automatically during the installation. What it not does, it does not touch any specific display programs or user-defined programs. It's just to regenerate what we deliver. And the use case, of course, is that all programs are generated regardless of natural problems and missing definitions so that you can start. It might happen that you need to recat or do another cat all. Then we have a new command, recat, and this catalogs existing display programs without generating it. It just leaves it as it is, and it's done automatically during a log-on to the Adabas review on mainframe. So the idea behind this, an easy way to recatalog display programs without touching the source, so that you can work after an upgrade. And the check function was actually a beneficial thing because you can run it with a new option all, and you get information about the program, which are okay, which are not okay, and which needs to be generated again or recatalogued because of the GDA timestamp conflicts, things like that. So it makes it easier in previous times or in up to the last release. The check actually stopped with the first error it found, but now it works through all programs and provides you with a list of problems so that you can then work on that and get things corrected and run the programs. Just to show you how it looks like, here a screenshot, you see in the red box, need RG. That means this report has a problem, probably timestamp issue, and you get the information to regenerate it. And down, I just said in the command regen all, and it goes through and regenerates it, and then it works. What you see as type with S and Y, that are types that it's a new function we talk about in a minute. That's you can schedule reports now. Okay, then go to the next one. We have quite a lot of new fields in it. So the intention was, of course, to support all new fields we had in Adabas 8.3 and then, of course, 8.4. And what we also did is that we provide field names and therefore information about more or less all information we send out on the shutdown statistics. So, and we have new categories or we have categories with more information about. So the buffer, control block IO, nucleus, statistic buffer, operating system, transaction processing, monitor. This is just a selection here. Please go to the documentation. You see quite a lot of these new fields. So that means you have much more option to generate reports and get out an information, whatever you need. Then the next requirement was, I would like to change layout of a report so that it fits on a screen or on a certain paper. And that's what we address now. What you can do is you can define the format of a field for a report. You cannot do all because, for example, the format A, B, and N cannot be changed, but we will see in an example how it looks like. You can reduce the length of a field if you know that you just have 4 digits and the field has space for whatever 8 digits, then you can say I only need 4, for example. And you can adjust the length of the header. So on whatever is larger dictates the column width at the end. What we also did is we came up with a new program with a new module called redef. That means you are able to generate a new member, redefinitions, and this is a natural text member which contains then the information. Now let's see how it looks. This is a report you typically do, and please remember at the right side the last column, file. Actually, it's much wider. You need to go to the right side in order to see all, but that is not what you want. Then you can do this redefinition, and what you see here, this is a file. And on the right side, you see what type and what length the typical field has. And on the left side, you see the new name, and you see different lengths or different type. And when the report runs, it reads this member, and the result looks like this. So you see the file is now more on the left side, and you see all the other columns which are not visible in the original report. So it's easier. You can adjust the report to your needs. Then, what I already said, schedule reports, and I just show you what you need to do. I just used the command by hour report, this one we sent you, and I said, okay, I want to define time, date, whatever I need to schedule a report. For this, I need to go to the edit mode, type in edit report, and then I go down to the options, and when I click on PF2, I get the first set of options. This is the standard you already know, and here you need to click on PF8, so for the next page, and if I do that, then you get a new screen with all the information, and to make it a bit easier, it's enlarged. So what you need to do is, of course, you need to instruct Review to activate scheduling for this. Then you can say, okay, I want to do a start date time and an end date time. I need to define the duration, minutes, and I need to define the interval. So that means in this time frame, a day, I want to run this report 50 times, and it should run just 1 minute. And this is what happens automatically. And of course, you can vary this. So that is also a requirement. Resolved makes life much easier. You don't have to sit at the console or on the screen and start things, or produce massive output because you start a report before you go home and then jump back in the other day in the morning. Now let's see what we do on client monitoring. Client monitoring is not new, but we got a request that you are not interested, not always interested in getting information reporting about all clients. Typically, you are interested in either one specific user or one specific job or a transaction, because there you have issues. Either it does not perform the job, or the transaction is slow, or it negatively impacts the behavior of the entire database. This is what we address now. It's available on COS for batch and CICS. We have prereqs, of course, but the first one is not really new because we need review exit 1 in order to get natural information, and we need the exit 2 in order to get the database information. What's new is that we use the Adabas System Coordinator, the client part, with patch level 3, and we need a few fixes for Adabas 8.3.4. And this now enables you to dynamically start on stop reports, and we use the function rule, what we see later, to define and specify on which item you are interested in. So what's new to this picture is that we need the core client. Interesting what happens here. But anyway, between the link module and the exits, we have the core client. Now let's see what you need to do in order to activate this new functionality. We have this LBGL set, and you know it. There are many parameters you can set in order to adjust the behavior of how Adabas works. And we have new parameters. Core is one for the system coordinator. You can say yes, no. We have review, yes, no, core. And we have the review client, yes, no, core. And if you set these parameters to the values I put in red, the results are that neither the exit 1 nor the exit 2 will be involved in client monitoring. So actually it's like you say no. However, the benefit is that we still are able to switch it on and off, and we will see a bit later. So we use the Adabas System Coordinator because he provides the functionality we need, and for all of you, you run, for example, FastPath or Vista or Transaction Manager, already know how to work with it. And now we can switch it dynamically, and you will see how it looks like. Now let's go to the System Coordinator administration part. There you have so-called runtime controls. One is review, and one is client monitor, and both are set to no. So you can see it here. The result is, as explained, the exits are disabled, but when you now switch on, and that's what you can do dynamically on a screen, the review to yes and the client monitor to yes, or just one, depending on what you want to see. As we already saw, the exit 1 is responsible for providing additional natural information, and the exit 2 is responsible for providing database-related information because it's on the way back. So these are the prereqs, and this can be switched on and off dynamically. Now, this talks about how you can select what you actually want to see, and we use the rules section within Adabas Review, and here you can see we have chosen the job name equal to DAF CI 81. This is the job we want to check and we want to get more information about. And the results then is that only the information for this job will be reported, and the information shown in the report also depends on the runtime control, so that's what we saw. And with this, you are able to get reports about a user, a job, or a transaction. And these are two examples how the result then looks like. Nothing special. The first one runs through the exit 1, the second one runs through the exit 2. Okay, now you are able on one side to schedule a report to a certain time, and you can specify for which items you want to see reports about client behavior. Now to SIP enablement. You already know, I'm pretty sure, especially for those of you who use Natural as the programming language, that Natural is already SIP enabled. Now with the Adabas System Coordinator, we support the SIP enabler for Natural under CICS, under Complete, and in Batch. And we also support the client-based part of, for example, Core, FastPath, Vista, and so on, in terms of SIP enablement, so that you don't have to switch, or the system has to switch between the task-related mode and the SRB mode. And this is now available with Core version 8.2.2 and the patch level 3. And this shows you typically you run on the GPP, and eligible work can be offloaded to the SIP running in a so-called SRB mode, which gives you not typically what you normally think performance, but it gives you the option to use the SIP processor and don't use the general purpose processors. So that means your load you have to pay for gets minimized. Now let's talk about the mainframe event replication. It's quite heavily used, and we did quite a few new functions, and we reacted on customer requirements. So let's go through and see what's in for you with this new release 3.6.1. You may remember that when you do an initial state, that it may take quite a long time depending on the number of MU and PEs you use. And there we introduced the 1-N notation, so to make it faster so that we don't have to process all occurrences, but just the ones that have values. And this is now available for normal replication of business data. So there you also benefit from an performance increasement. Another requirement was, and at the end it was obvious, so we now support database files that are secured by password or cipher code. In order to do so, we decided to use a safe place on the COS. We use RUGF, where you can define your password and your cipher code. And in order to talk to RUGF, we typically use the Adabas security, which is also prereq here. And then you are on a safe side. You have the definition once on a safe place. If you want to replicate such files, Adabas security gets the credentials, checks it, gets your answer, and the replication works also for such files. Then we have a new D-class PALM option for the destination. That's a few options. You can specify behavior on what you want to do for destination. So there are two, and they are mutually exclusive. And if you specify both, the first one, the 32, wins. So you get a full before image or after image for all fields you send. So regardless whether they are changed or not, or modified or not. And the other one is if the before image is not to be included, when a field gets modified, you still get information like primary keys and so on, even if it's not touched, so that you can find the data in the target system. Another option we put in for the offline initial state Adabas is start time, start date, vice versa. So you would think, what is it good for? When you do an initial state, you typically, or actually, it definitely makes sense to close the destination so that the initial state runs and you still can collect the changes. But there are some situations where we run in crazy situations if we don't know when the destination has been closed. Let's assume you do an update to record before the initial state starts, and then you delete. And when the initial state successfully ended and it runs the data stored in the S-log, then you may do an update, but previous to that happened a delete, so you will get an error. With this information, we internally know what to do, so we change the course. We do, instead of an update, do first an insert, or we do an insert and then the data is in. And since we do not know when the destination gets closed, we ask you for providing us date and time. The next request was, we have subscription exits, user exits, but we want to have new logic in. And today we need to restart the replication server. It's not really 24/7. Now you have an option to refresh the subscription user exit. What do you need to do is, if you use this command, the reader command, then you can only refresh one exit per call. You may have different exits in different subscriptions. It's available on COS, and the Adabas 8.4 is required as a minimum, and it needs to run APF authorized. What you also need is, you need a DD statement with exit lib, which provides the new exit, and it needs to have, of course, the same name, otherwise it cannot be stopped, the old one and the new one started. So the exit name needs to be definitely the same. So when a new version becomes effective, when you load a new one, the new version becomes effective immediately for all subscription using this user exit. I guess a behavior you would expect. After the new version has been successfully loaded, internally, a terminate function is executed for the old version so that it gets dropped and deleted. And after that, an initial function or initiate function for the new one will be done because something needs to be initiated. And then you can use the new one without restart the server. In case the new version cannot be loaded, then the old version stays in effect and nothing happens. You will get an error message and you can correct it. The next one is, we already provide event logging. Now we have a new parameter and new events. The new parameter is a initial parameter and can be set in the DD card environment. So this is for all of you who like to provide the main basic parameters in the job. This parameter is equivalent to the event logging. You can set in the online system, this RPTR, for a destination, so it depends on what you like. But anyway, regardless what you do for the three types you see at the top, you get new event types so that you know more what happens. And you can then, of course, analyze it later. Now the topic you requested also, called replication monitoring. And now let's talk about what it means at the end, how it's made available, what components you need, and how you can work with it. It's an overview because the topic is large, and depending on the requirements, we can do a more detailed session to get a better feeling what you really need to do. But now let's start with the overview, the components you need, and maybe let's start with what you have today. When you get the event replication package, you have, of course, the replication server. You have then the WCA, the limited network to communicate with the mapping tool, and you get on the LUW side the target adapter, the mapping tool, and the administration tool for the target adapter. And now you get a new component called Adabas Analytics Collector. Does not sound it has anything to do with replication, but it has, and the name is because of we think we can use this in other environments to collect other software. So the component will remain the same. What we use in order to store information and present information is Elasticsearch, an open source search engine, which can be downloaded, or we provide an example, just an example, so that you can start. And I guess quite a few of you may already know it. And the primary presentation layer for Elasticsearch is called Kibana, also an open source visualization layer. And we see later a few screenshots and what you can do with it in case you don't know it so far. From the parameter point of view, we have this stat interval parameter which activates monitoring. Then we have a parameter called dStatLog, which is a destination parameter which enables the destination to receive statistical information and instructs the replication server to send data to such destinations. Then we have the D-event log. We already saw it because of the events and the new events we have. And we have a DHB interval. This is another set of statistical information. We call it heartbeat. This is when you run when you replicate data of a transaction, you go through middleware, you go through the target adapter to the target itself. And we collect information on the journey of the data from the source side to the target, and we send it then over, and we see where. And here you can specify in which interval you want to do that. You may think, okay, I always need to specify intervals. So it's not automatically. Well, if you think about, we generate quite a lot of data, and that's not business data. And so the intention is to let you know how often you want to get this information, and you can change it, of course. So if you start at the beginning, you may be in the second area. And if you then have an adjusted system, you may want to have this data every minute or every 5 minutes. So it's up to you how you want to, how many data you want to get. This is just the overview in order to show you a bit where the application monitoring sits. On the left side, that's what you know, of course. The database server, the applications, database administration, database online services. You have the replication server on mainframe. You have the replication administration. And here you get now new statistics. In the administration, you can define things. We see it a bit later, or you can put it in DD card. And this is actually the statistical information we generate. So we have general information for subscription, for destinations, subtasks, input queue when you do node-to-node replication, information about slog, very important. We have events, you already saw, and we have this, what we call heartbeat. And if you go then more to the right side, and now we are at the LUW side, we have a messaging system. Here in my presentation, I talk about the entire Xproger. We of course also support MQ series, but let's here talk about the entire Xproger. This is with messaging system. And now we have different ways depending on whether you specify a destination, and you need a destination in order to reach the analytics collector. This is the collector who is responsible for processing statistical data. Well, the most of the statistical data. The other part you see at the bottom, there we have business data, as you know it, going to the replication, target adapter. But as I already said, when we send data from the database replication server to the target adapter, we collect information. That's separate units of information, and they are also sent through this channel to the target adapter. The target adapter then itself finds out, oh, there are, beside business data, so-called heartbeat information, processes in a way, converts it, and sends it to the analytics collector, because the analytics collector is the one who is really responsible dealing with statistical data. And this one has Elasticsearch as a target system, which is a clustered somehow database where you can store information, and we use Kibana in order to get visualization information out of the Elasticsearch. And the nice thing is, of course, it collects data. They are available even if you 6 months later want to see and you have enough space, then you can access that data and see what happened or change time frame. We will see what you can do with it. We just talked about S-log monitoring. So this is now what you can do. And you see down in the global values in the replication subsystem, in the administration, you can set an interval. It's the same. So with this interval, a new set of thresholds are visible, as you can see for SO data, for the replication server, because at the end is a database, for the address converter, data storage, normal and upper index. And depending on the thresholds in percent, you set, if one of this or more thresholds are reached or exceed, then you will get a warning on the console. This is one side so that you can check what's going on. And this data are also sent over to the analytics part for analysis. Then we already said, okay, we have this stat interval parameter in order to enable monitoring per se. And that's also a global parameter, as you can see. A destination-specific parameters then are the dstat log, because we only want to send data to the destinations which are enabled, let's say, interested in it, not to all. And you can also switch on the heartbeat interval. 0 means no information is collected, and a value greater than 0 defines the interval. So with this, you have monitoring enabled. Here just a few information, because we have quite a lot of data available where you can create your own visualizations, your own reports in terms of review. Just here a few global statistics, what we bring out. For subscriptions, we have statistics. For subscription files, we have statistics, things we do, whether in initial state or inserts or updates. For subtasks, which subtasks are work, the output totals, and so on. And a few others, the database destination statistics. These are all information we use in order to provide it in at the target side to do analytics then later. And even if you delete a queue or a destination, you will get information what you lose when you delete it while the system is running. Now let's move to the presentation layer, and now we are in Kibana. What you see when you do a discovery, that's one function you have available. Then you see, and you need to define or select the, let's say, the container in which the data are. You can define different like containers within the system. Container not in a term, in a sense of operating systems, logical units where you can store information. And then you see when you collect data, how many data, you have an overview what's in, and you see at the left side all the fields. Well, that's more, that's just from the screenshot, you can select in order to create so-called visualizations. And if you see on the more on the right side, for example, the type is something we use, we have engine, or we have many other things, then all this data are available for you to be used in visualizations. Now let's see how this looks like. This is from the target adapter, and now we are in the area that we talk about heartbeat information coming along with the business data through the target adapter going then to the analytics collector to the Elasticsearch and being presented here. What you see here is in the upper part are the latency for certain destinations, and you see in the pie chart the distribution of the information, what happens, and down you see the processing time for the same, and we just have chosen two different ways of visualize it. This is examples to show you how it looks like, and the nice thing of Kibana is whatever we provide, you can see how it's done and you can adjust it, you can copy it and change it, so you don't need to start from scratch if you don't know this technology. You can just use what we have. You can go to the documentation, see what is available in terms of information, and simply play around to see what you can do and how you can create the information you need at the end. Another example is from a program run we did actually yesterday. And so we start and you see how the load increases, the latency of course goes up. This is at the upper part in the middle. Then on the right side, this pie chart is not really interesting because we have just one destination. If we would have more, then you would see more graphs here and you would have a different pie chart which shows you the percentage what goes over to the destinations. Down, then you see the processing time, and you see in the middle down, you see how it increases and how it decreases after the program then finished. And on the right side, this is another presentation. You see how long it takes to get the statistical information. So the larger the gap is between two, the more processing time you need, the higher is the latency, and that correlates with the other graphics you see at the right side. This is also just an example and should show you how to use the system. Then another one for replication server itself. And here you see a type, vector statistics subscription file, for example, different type. And you see here on the left side that you have another set of information. Just a little hint, if you select one here or click on it and type in add, then you see it above, and this is like a selection criteria for this container. And the result here is that we show in two different presentations, or three actually, the access or the modification to the database source files, file 1 and file 3. At the top, you just see numbers, inserts, updates, and deletes, and you see that the insert is higher than the delete, so that means it needs some time to do the insert and then the updates and process the data, because this information comes also partly as heartbeat with the data. Then you see then graphs, and you can see that the inserts, the green ones down, and you can see the updates, and there at the top we have a few deletes. That's what you can see, or you can see it in a pie chart, how many inserts and updates are done against the files. This is also interesting. That's a combination of a pie chart with statistical information and a part, a table, and a third one on the right side, where you can see how many event types you got. Remember at the beginning when we talked about the event log, and you can see that we have open deactivations and so on, and you can see for which destination and for which subscription. And this is also a way of creating visualizations, and each of this is a visualization for its own, and together it's called a dashboard. So you can create whatever you want, can adjust it to your need. It's really flexible. Last but not least, more an overview dashboard. This is information of data being replicated from the source through entire Xproger to the target adapter and then applied to a SQL database. On this, you can see how many bytes you send, how it goes up, then the distribution to the subscriptions, so the vehicle, the employees, and none, right? And you see the received and the processing time then in the broker. That's what you see here, and so on. So you can define things so that you see the journey of the data in terms of statistical information. Right, and now let's move to LUW, Linux, Unix, Windows. There we also have new releases, and let's start with the Adabas server there. The main task of CICS is to provide more usability, to prepare the kernel itself for the future, and deal with security. But let's start. Our request was that we should be able to delete a database, either the kernel, the containers, or the containers and the directory. This is now possible with the parameter delete database and the attributes container or full. Then the DBM is able to create a RBAC file that deals with security. Role-based access control is the name of this abbreviation. That's the standard name. And so what we did is, analogous to relational databases, our authorization is based in the database, and it's possible that utilities especially can run when the database is online, of course, or when the database is offline. So utilities have a way to access this security credentials in the database file without going through the normal channel of the call interface. Then the nucleus itself got a new parameter which deals with the default encoding system for W fields. Typically we say, okay, you have the open command. Here you can specify the encoding you want to get the data back, because it's always stored in UTF-8 in the database for performance reasons. But not all applications use the open command, and sometimes it's not possible to change it. And therefore, we introduced a new parameter where you can specify your default code page. For example, when you use natural, you can use the code page natural uses and as a default. The ADA start got a change, so the requirement was, okay, the database writes a log file, but when I have a problem and I restart the database, the log information are gone. What we actually thought to do, as you see at the bottom, we have the ADA log plus timestamp, but that would mean quite a few of applications that your side, our side need to change. Therefore, we said, okay, we keep the name ada.nuc.log, but when we start again, then we save the current from the last session, the log file with a timestamp, so you do not lose information which you might use for your own, or in case of a problem, you can use it to call support and talk about what happened at that time. The next changes we did, also requirements. Customer want to have the count of the files, records loaded in overview. That's what we did. You can see it, records loaded. Another requirement was that you want to see which files have been updated since the last backup. It's marked with the M. You see it in the red box. Now you can see what has changed or not. And of course, Adabas allows you to set the default encoding. Now let's go to the analytics at the LUW side. And when we talk about analytics, we talk about auditing at the end, and we talk about what diagnosis, what we call database review on LUW. And you need to configure a few things, of course, in order to instruct the database to work accordingly. Up to now, we had a utility called EIL config, and this utility now is more a traditional database utility and works in the same way as all others. So in here you can now configure the database in a different way. You can do updates that's transparent to you in the db.ini file, and you can create new event types. We'll talk a bit later about that. And currently, when you do new event types, you need to restart the database kernel. That might disappear over time, but the Adabas allows you to switch on or off analytics. So this is something you need to know. When you do that and you want to have auditing, you need to make sure that you only do it and know that you then also lose auditing information. So that should be used very carefully. More on the right side, the screenshots, you can add server. Add server means that you instruct the database how to reach the analytics server we use in order to process data. The reason behind this one is to have a minimal impact on the database, source database side, and just send the data over, process it in a different process that makes more sense. Then the next one, NUC ELG, is what you already know. We have one file where we track information. So that's also a file where we have auditing data in. It's an internal format, and you have a utility where you can get out auditing data more in a key value way, which can be then used to load it in an database. One customer said, yeah, that's great. That's what I use. And then I write a natural program and write the data into the database, and then I can do my normal analytics. But there's another way of doing that, in just sending the data to the analytics server. Then event type, there's just a few, and we started with this. So you can define which information you want to see. So when we do all, and all means all read access, all modifications, all authentication requests going through the database are captured, and that's massive data. And if you don't need at the end all data, you can adjust this. And you see the area, this is post command. We will increase it over time to have more information available. That's a bit similar to the database review in the mainframe in a different way. But from a natural point of view, we get exactly the same data that are relevant for LUW. We will not get, of course, information about the TB monitor, because we don't have one on LUW. And the Adabas then lets you to switch on and off. But again, please remember you lose auditing data if you need it. The utility is called ADA ELA. This is how you define the event types, or you define in according to the attributes. You can define the name and then keywords and field keywords and the path of the file where we write this information, event type file. That's what you do. And at the bottom you see how this event type file looks like in terms of event information. And this is read by the nucleus, and the nucleus then generates this event types and put the information in based on your definitions. Of course, we have predefined ones which will remain. Now let's talk about the role-based access and just about the new things. And this is for you to get you on board and see how it works. The concept is that we have user roles and we have role permissions. So the user USR DB admin has a permission DB admin, which is down a role and which has permissions with a perm. You go over and you can see, okay, the DB admin can access any object and all operations allowed. For a file admin, you can any object, but file operations and so on. And you see the operations are the utilities you can execute. And you see also here, all operation file. This is what we provide. You can change it and you can adjust it to your needs. And the object here is database. So this means in asterisk, you can access all databases. Here you can limit, of course, the access to database when you change the object name and you simply specify the database a certain user or a role should have access to in terms of utilities. The utility is in the same manner as other utilities. You can create things. You need the DB ID, of course. You can drop items. You can grant or revoke access permissions. You can list, of course. And that's what you do in the same way. Important actually is that each command is handled as a transaction in terms of the database. So when you do a grant and it's done, it's committed and it's then part of the database. Jumping over to our middleware, entire network on LUW, 771 is more or less service pack. However, we introduced Software AG Update Manager. So that means it's in the same way as other products work from Software AG and Adabas itself. You install it and you can apply fixes, and if one fix does not work, you can remove it without doing manual work. The system does it for you. And I would say last but not least, but now we are coming to the end, let's talk about the Connex releases. I guess all of you know that Connex, the former partner, is now part of Software AG. And so we continue our work a bit in a different way because we have more options. What we provide a new functionality in the October release is that we support SSL for all TCP/IP-based communication, and the title says event replication, data sync. Event replication is what we, or what you know, event replication for Adabas, which has been extended to support also other data sources for example, Microsoft SQL Server or MySQL, and we think about supporting Oracle. However, Adabas has the tightest integration because it's our own software and we have different interfaces. DataSync is not a real-time replication synchronization tool. It's based on a scheduler, but here now we support AWS Redshift in the cloud. We have a driver based on ODBC JDBC that allows you to synchronize data you have on-premise with the cloud. And the interesting part is, because the SQL layer below is actually a virtualization layer for all the data sources we support. That's about 150. So that means you are now able to read data you have on data sources, well, it's on LUW, on mainframe, whether it's a database or a file system. You can read it and push it to the cloud, and there you can work with the data. And the interesting part is, since it's scheduler-based, you get new data automatically, depending on the frequency of the scheduler. Event replication, we got requirements to provide more statistics. I would say here we have total statistics that's just for one replication part, and you see it, the tools, you get information in the server. The consumer is the server which processes actually the request coming from the source database. And since the server is up and since the last interval, it's all interval driven. And down here, what's the number 2 is for each replication task, actually, you get information about the initial state, about the transaction per seconds, the row procedure, the events, the insert, updates and deletes, and so on. So you get a much more detailed information what's going on when you have load on the replication. The next function we provide, and that's the interesting part. Actually, all of us are happy to work on a GUI-based tool because it's easy. But from an operational point of view, when you have 24/7, it's not always practical to have only a GUI because you need to sit in front of it, and if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's not really fun to do things. Therefore, we introduced here also a command line tool where you can do a pause for a replication task, and afterward you see a status command and you see what happened. So you see that the replication with task with the ID 6, which has a source database 22 and the target database also 22. That means you can replicate within the database, is paused, and another one is offline. And then you can resume it, and you get the information when you do a status after the resume. Okay, the replication ID 6 is replicating, and the one with 5 is also replicating, and you see what the source and what the target is. Same is true, you can also initiate a initial state for replication tasks, and here we also talk about the IDs you get from the administration, and then you can initiate the replication and you get the status, and after that initial state pending or initial state completed in this case. And with this slide, I'm at the end of my journey presenting you the new information and the new functionality we provide to you with the October release. And with this, I want to give back to you, Will. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, I'm happy.
Thank you, Wolfgang. We're actually well past the hour mark, so we have to end, unfortunately, without the questions. But thank you very much for your time and for the presentation today. With that, our program has ended. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.